sound, I'm alive.
Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast. I'm Gavin, and thanks again for joining us. If you're first time here, welcome, and lots of good cure talk for you this evening. It's a nice quiet evening here, just me and the boy at home. He's asleep, so I figured it seems like a nice time to turn on the mic and see what you guys are up to, and do a little nerd deep dive into some cure talk. And this has been an episode that's been in the books for a long time, floating around that notebook, but it's one that needs to be covered because every time you talk to a Cure fan, their eyes will light up when you talk about Cure Peel sessions. No doubt are a fan of these recordings. Not super rare at this point thanks to the internet, but they're kind of always a little harder to come by throughout the years. And it's a tough one. I think the reason why we delayed it for so long was because it kind of falls into the top of the pops categories or other ones where it's like a much bigger thing outside of the Cure. So I don't want to just try to do a whole John Peel biography episode because you guys know about him. We'll cover a little of the backstory, but for the most part, we're going to talk about the Cure sessions on Peel Sessions. So, but hopefully you'll learn a little something, and mostly I just like to inspire the idea of going back and listening to these sessions that the Cure recorded for Peel Sessions and appreciate them because they are pretty fucking cool actually, and aren't just something to be glossed over with all your Cure bootlegs and everything else that you have stacked up or in your files somewhere. So let's revisit Peel Sessions, Cure Edition, and a little back history. What do you say? Sound like a good time? Good. Well, get comfy. Let's kick it off a little. What is the Peel Sessions then? Let's do a little background. John Robert Parker Ravenscroft, recipient of the Order of British Empire, born August 30th, 1939. Sadly passed away October 25th, 2004. But known professionally as John Peel. And he was an English DJ, radio presenter, record producer, and journalist. He was a VJ a little bit too, if you count it as that, on Top of the Pops. We learned that he guested as a host occasionally on there. He was the longest serving of the original BBC Radio 1 DJs, broadcasting regularly from 1967 until his death in 2004. So there's going to be a lot of things that I'm a little unclear about. As I investigated, I answered some of my own questions, but particularly you guys growing up in the UK throughout the years that were able to hear these in real time. Apologies, and feel free to drop me a line because there's going to be some stuff I'm definitely not sure about or totally wrong about. So just as I'm describing the Peel Sessions, I'm not quite sure if that was just the section that he would talk about where they would play in the studio and that would be the sessions, or was his whole show called Peel Sessions. But Peel's Radio 1 show was notable for having what the internet anyways calling the Peel Sessions portion, which his show would consist of him DJing latest singles or just whatever tracks that he liked best, it seems, from a wide range of genres. And that's kind of one of his huge credits, and what John Peel was known for is really getting a lot of cool different genres on during his radio show, in particular techno. Later it seemed like he was really at the forefront of introducing cool electronic artists to everybody. But I mean, when you look at the list of everybody, he is notorious for this, for pulling out these somewhat unknown bands at the time and introducing them to the world, it seemed like. And this stretches back, like we said, he started in 67, so all through the 70s, before the Cure is even around, into the late 70s and 80s, or with all the cool new wave bands, and post-punk, everything into, the 90s even. So all those cool 90s rocks into Britpop, Nirvana, everybody's in there. So it's pretty amazing when you look at the full list of who was on these sessions. And a lot of them were pulled in at the start of their career, and this in the UK anyway, definitely was a huge endorsement and stamp of approval for these bands. It seems if you were lucky enough to get a Peel session early on in your career, the ones he liked apparently would come back a few times and revisit for each different album and phase of their career. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's backtrack to what the fuck the Peel sessions portion were. They were cool because they would often feature a band playing about 4 songs that seemed to be on the average live from the BBC studios. Well, they were pre-recorded though, so it was kind of live. But they're exceptionally cool because they're felt very live, but they would have overdubs and extra harmonies and stuff, but not, you could tell, not like dwelling on them. And so it was cool because they were live, but good quality mix in a studio, but they were still grittier, you know? So that works in a lot of favor of like bands, especially earlier bands, which is a pretty common thing, it seems, especially through the 80s. All these bands that we love, where their first albums or so aren't really the best production-wise approach to their sound. Just thinking of The Cure and, like the Smiths and all these bands that the first album, it took a little bit to find their sound in the studio. So these studio recordings, even like OMD ones, are really cool because it's more kind of stripped down too, and grittier sounding. I'll say that a bunch, but there's something cool about that where you can kind of hear a thinner version of like these electronic kind of artists and stuff if you're using that, where even like the New Order one's cool because it's a little more gritty. So it's kind of cooler in my opinion, and arguably better than the album versions a lot of times. So the thinner approach almost works better in a way. I guess the comparison would be in modern day thoughts to people that if you're familiar with those KEXP recordings that you see on YouTube, for a long time I was just listening to the recordings of those, of when bands would go into that, I believe they're based out of Seattle or somewhere in the Northwest there. KEXP does these cool in-studio recordings, but they're all like, fucking plugged in and mixed and sounds great, so it's technically live, but But yeah, I don't know what the deal with the overdubs is on these two, because then, they would play them like a couple weeks later, I guess, on his show and call it the Peel Sessions. So pretty cool for that. And like I said, it's a huge deal if you got in on the Peel Sessions early in your career. I'm still not sure if he actually ever interviewed anybody on these sessions. I don't think so. Of all the ones I've listened back to, I've listened to a few episodes in whole, even where you listen to all the songs he was playing, and then the Peel Sessions part, he never would talk to him, I don't think. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. I feel like those would have emerged. I'm sure he did interviews throughout his career somewhere, but I don't think that was ever considered part of the Peel Sessions recordings, was any kind of interview with the bands. So pretty cool. They just stick it straight to the music. So like I said, it was a huge deal to get a Peel session. Even Robert Smith would be quoted in saying he would listen to Peel sessions and discover new acts before and after the career would take off. Apparently over 4,000 sessions got recorded with over 2,000 bands. Like I said, many of them would be reoccurring, I think, based on if he liked them or not. The Fall, one of Peel's favorite bands, had the most appearances. They had 24 sessions between 1978 and 2004. The first session was recorded by a band called Tomorrow on September 21st, 1967. And the last, it's a little hard to say, this just based on technicalities. There wasn't a session on his last show, because I listened to that in full. That one's on YouTube. His last show was October 14th, 2004. And it's pretty sad because he says he's going on vacation. And but Skimmer is credited as being the last band. So they must have like pre-recorded it. And then he had some other shows that he played in between that last show and when he passed away, and they must have been played on that. 3 further sessions had also already been booked, apparently, before his death. So I don't know if they aired them still or if they scrapped them afterwards, but it was Block Party was supposed to be on the 4th, and 65 Days of Static, actually, November 18th, and Sun O on December 9th. So yeah, I'm not sure if those got aired afterwards, if they put some kind of continuation together episode, or if it just came to a grinding halt, no pun intended, upon his passing in 2004. Many bands ended up having semi-official releases based on the Peel sessions. So that was kind of a late 80s thing where I would start seeing the tapes. Strange Fruit Records was established by Clive Selwood and John Peel in 1986 and was primarily distributor of BBC recordings, including the Peel sessions. So this was like a little label apparently he formed, and they would put out select Peel sessions as recordings that you could buy. Strange Fruit closed its doors in 2004 too, probably upon his passing, which is kind of sad. I'm not sure what the full catalog is for Strange Fruit, if they put out like original actual albums or if they're all kind of based on BBC in studio recordings or what. But all our favorites have at least one official Peel session released through Strange Fruit. So it's not through their own labels. So the Cure ones aren't through Fiction or Elektra or any of that. It's just through Strange Fruit. New Order has one. Susie and the Banshees, Joy Division, the Smiths. Everybody's got them. They're, of course, the Cure one is only the first session, sadly. But they have their Peel session, and it's on Strange Fruit as well. It's been bootlegged a billion times on top of that. But the official one, if you remember, if you're from my age bracket there anyway, was like the silver tapes. And they would have like a list of billion band names behind it in black. And then it would have that band. So all the covers were very similar. So it would have been kind of cool I had a whole bunch of them, but definitely not all of them by any means, I'm sure. But that would have been pretty rad if you had all those silver tape ones. The CDs would get kind of varying covers. I think the most common format or official Strange Fruit released one of the Cure session has a picture, just the old Cure. It's like blue and pink on the cover from, I think, that Hope and Anchor show, the one there's pictures of in the beginning of the 10 Imaginary Years book, where he's wearing like the kind of long overcoat. So yeah, like I said, all the bootlegs, there's been a billion different ones, especially if you start looking into the vinyl. There's been two pretty widely known vinyls that are like volume 1 and 2, like the early part, and then the later Cure sessions on a different vinyl. And they just have kind of a generic old Cure picture and then a later Cure picture. But yeah, they're just taking them from those old bootlegs. But they're all pretty much out there. They're definitely all over YouTube. The only thing to watch out for is a lot of times they get lumped in with BBC sessions, just different BBC sessions. I never really looked into it, but I'm assuming they're for different radio shows or whatever. But they aren't technically Peel sessions as far as I can tell, because there's a few around Faith and Pornography era that stretched out that I didn't see them being official Peel sessions, but they're BBC sessions. So you might find that CD or that YouTube play mix, and it'll be a little more thorough because it'll be all BBC stuff. Like I said, it's just usually like an extra like 6 songs or something from Faith or Pornography. And those vary, and sometimes they're inaccurate. They'll throw some demo from the deluxe reissues in there too that are a little sus, as the kids say. So let's see, what else do we got before we dive into what the Cure actually did on the Peel sessions? Like I said, there's a lot of cool websites. I had them linked at different times, but I feel like they're always kind of changing. But there sadly isn't like a mega archive that has absolutely all of his shows in full, or even just the sessions part. I did rediscover a blog that seems to be your best bet. It's called formerly known as the Bullocks, and what is it? It's davidstricklandson.blogspot.com, and I'll link to that on our Facebook page. And basically, they're all listed by band and what year, but it's like at least 1,000 of them on here, and it takes you to YouTube pages, and uploads. So you do have to listen to it on YouTube. So that kind of sucks. But at the same time, they're there, and it's fucking great because there's so many cool bands that you just slip by you too. That just were, bands that fizzled out pretty quickly. But as far as like the big name ones, you could just go down the list. I could totally just flip through this whole thing and just read a couple to you. It's silly to even try to just name them all. But yeah, Billy Bragg. What do we got? Buzzcocks. We got The Cure. We got Cockney Rebels, Curve on there. We got Dinosaur Jr. You got Echo and the Bunnymen, who put all these together. Like I said, a lot of these bands will put all of them together out as an official release, which I fucking wish The Cure would do. But I guess maybe that's not in their hands. Rhino to the rescue. Somebody? I don't know. Elvis Costello. You got The Caliber of Luna and Galaxy 500 and Generation X. You got Jesus and Mary Chain and Spiral Carpets, Killing Joke. Matter Rose. So I mean, it's not just 80s bands too. Mogwai did 2 sessions in the 90s. New Order on there, OMDs, like I said. Pavement was on there a bunch. PJ Harvey, Pulp, Roxy Music, everybody, Susie and the Banshees, Sonic Youth, Steel Pulse, Teenage Fan Club. We got The Birthday Party. We got the Fall, like a billion fucking times, like I said. And House of Love. Did I see Jesus and Mary Chain yet? They're on there. And Only Ones, The Passions, The Primitives, The Specials, The Wedding Present, Thin Lizzy. So all kinds of eras, all kinds of good ones. Wire, Nirvana was on there. Yola Tango, Yeah Yeah Yeahs. So even if they just did one session, a lot of them are on this. You can listen to them. Pretty rad. So where does that leave us with The Cure, though? The Cure did 6 sessions from 1978 to 1985. Sadly, that was the last one they did, was in 1985. I don't know if they just got too big, or if John Peel only was focusing on the more up and coming bands at that point, or I don't think they ever had a falling out. Robert had some nice words to say in his passing that I'll read to you later. But so most were recorded a month or so before the albums came out too, which is a little weird. So lots of unwritten and unmemorized lyrics would actually pop up on The Cure's sessions, which definitely adds a freshness to the songs, though. You can tell they're kind of like not set in concrete yet, and you can feel the energy and excitement of them sharing these new songs on the Peel sessions, even if all the glue hasn't quite dried yet. But at the same time, so it's interesting take that The Cure has on these, because you would think it would be more of a promotional thing after a new album is out that they would do. So let's dive in to the actual Cure sessions and how they all went down, and the little tidbits I have and thoughts I have on those to share with you guys. But the first session, like I said, what an honor to be recorded on December 4th, so at the end of that epic 1978 year for The Cure. Keep in mind that the Killing an Arab single was released December 22nd, 78. So this was before the single was even officially out, that they'd be playing their first session on John Peel's sessions there. It would broadcast on the 11th, so still before the single came out. And this is the one that comes out later in a slightly official form on Strange Fruit that we have the tape of, or the CD or the vinyl bootleg. So this is the main one that's out there from 78, before Three Imaginary Boys is officially even out, before the single Killing an Arab is even officially out. They play, and even the running order on these are pretty much consistent for most of the things you'll look at. But there's a running order. Could be a little bit questionable on some of these because they could just be shuffled around. We don't fucking know. I listened to a replay of a John Peel one that was on YouTube. And I guess occasionally he would replay old ones. This was like a much later one where somebody had requested a Faith era John Peel session. And he played them and it was in a different order than what had previously been on. So I don't know. So take that with a grain of salt. But they played 1015, Killing an Arab, Fire in Cairo. Oh, and Boys Don't Cry is the last song. So yeah, it's a solid batch of 4. 1015's pretty standard sounding. But all these, I'm going to go on the record thinking, I kind of think they're better takes than are what on Three Imaginary Boys anyway. I guess the singles ones aren't on Three Imaginary Boys. But might even be better than the single takes on those for Killing an Arab and Boys Don't Cry. Maybe. Definitely 1015 and Fire in Cairo though. I feel like there's more of a actual like pure sound a little bit more than what Chris Perry captured by producing the first album. Maybe just, me knowing that Robert wasn't 100% happy with the recording of that album too. So it kind of is in your head that there's a little distaste for those recordings. But I feel like these are fucking tight. His voice sounds a little less like squeaky than it does on those early on Three Imaginary Boys. He sounds a little more like somehow like more than what he'll sound like later on these takes anyway. So yeah, 1015 is pretty standard, but I like it a lot. Killing an Arab, the voice kind of sounds a little better than I think on the single. Fire in Cairo, again, sounds a bit more chill vocally, a little bit more Cure sounding. It has both backing vocals. Like I mentioned with the overdubs, there's a couple sections where nothing huge that they would, but obviously they would have to go back and do another vocal track with it before airing it and mixing it and all. This one's a little weird. On Fire in Cairo, it almost sounds like different voices that aren't Robert's. So I almost wonder if the other dudes were singing along on Fire in Cairo. Could just be Robert, and he's not fully harmonizing with himself yet or what, but it sounds a little more like shouty, on the F-I-R-E-I-C-I-R. So check that out. See if maybe this might be the only known recording of Simon and Lowell singing backup in the studio or something. Or maybe there's more of them that I didn't know about, but that'd be a first to my knowledge. So pretty cool to listen to that. Most all the other ones are obviously Robert doing a backing vocal just over it. Discogs credits Simon and Lowell for singing backup vocals, but it has them for every song, which there aren't backing vocals on, so I don't know how much weight we can put on that. Boys Don't Cry also sounds great. All of these have a very distinct reverb that they're using in the studio that I kind of dig more than the vocals in the recording of Three Imaginary Boys too. So arguably better, I think. Tell me what you guys think. Has natural energy and just a better takes, I think. So, and it kind of continues on, in my opinion, through the rest of these sessions. A few of them might be arguably better. So let's move on. The next one's weird because it's a second session. This time, it's after Three Imaginary Boys has come out. And I think this is the only one of the 6 sessions The Cure does that they'll do after the release of the album. So it's kind of like they prepped them with that one, and then this is the follow-up one. And so Three Imaginary Boys is released on May 8th, 79. This was recorded the next day, May 9th, 79, but wouldn't be broadcast until May 16th. So about a week later, even, and pretty cool. They do 5 songs. This is the infamous Paul Morley review response one that has desperate journalists in an ongoing meaningful review situation recorded. And if you don't know what the fuck that was all about, the quick version is basically when Three Imaginary Boys came out. So, yeah, that must have been before the release, too. So, anyway, this guy kind of wrote a shitty review. And so, basically, Robert did a response song on Peel Sessions over the tune of Grinding Halt. But basically, he's reading quotes from the shitty review, talking shit in between and such. And it's funny, it's weird, it's not really when you think about it in hindsight, it's like, just calm down, you're gonna get shitty reviews. Probably don't need to do all this, but I guess it's just the punk attitude in the sense of redirect the piss onto the journalist there. So yeah, it's a weird battle. Hard to say, but it's funny and cool. So the weirder part is they have it lumped in as 5 songs, which is weird because I didn't really see too many other ones that got 5 songs anyway. So I don't know if they played Desperate Journalist and Grinding Halt on this session, or if they just swapped it in or played one at a different time or what. But when you see the full grouping of this session, both are in there, which is a little weird because it's kind of like 2 Grinding Halts. So, but Desperate Journalist, pretty funny, pretty weird, definitely worth a listen though. So you'll hear him reciting some of Paul Morley's shit in his review. So I don't know if there was a response to the response from Paul Morley after that or what, but I think history can tell who was the better in that argument.
It's just that in 1979, people shouldn't be allowed to get away with things like this, I say.
So, Grinding Halt also. This one I probably like the Three Imaginary Boys version a little better. So, I don't know, but Grinding Halt's awesome. So, way more energy though, and a little more just a rad live-ish sounding one, I think. Subway Song, weird selection from the album to play this. But, you know, still cool. Lots of heavy breathing. Luckily, no massive train screeching at the end, though, so in a sense, maybe that's better, too. And then they would also play Plastic Passion and Accuracy. Both sound pretty standard, like live studio versions of those 2 songs. Arguably, again, though, better than the album recordings, in my opinion. So, not as much as the first bracket, maybe, but same time, I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a more pure energy to these Peel Sessions for all these than there are on Three Imaginary Boys. So, alright, so we move away from Three Imaginary Boys. No more shit talking. Session 3 rolls around. Keep in mind, everything was rapid fire in these days for The Cure. Very little time in between all this shit, including albums, tours, radio promotion, radio recordings. 17 Seconds, the album would come out April 18th, 1980. This session was recorded March 3rd, 1980. So just about a little over a month ahead. But it's crazy because, yeah, so March of that, and then it would be broadcast on March 10th. So still about a month ahead of the actual album release. So a lot of times, this is pretty rad to think of that if you were a Cure fan for Three Imaginary Boys back in the day, this might be the first time you heard of Forest if you were listening closely on Peel Sessions. And it's a little teaser taste of all these new album tracks coming up. So that's kind of rad. I love that idea. A Forest is on this one. Super tight. And you can see how they crushed all these songs in the studio and were able to crank out the fucking 2-week album that they cranked it all out and had it really tight and ready to go. And you can see why based on these, it's hard to tell how far along, if the record was done the month before. I'd have to go back and look at the dates. Everything moves so much faster then, though. I'm assuming it would be done, and then like they're pressing it and shit that last month, but maybe not. So yeah, Forest sounds great. They crush it. Nothing too crazy. It just sounds like a great live version of how the original single would sound. 17 Seconds sounds really cool on this version. Less robotic than on the album, And really shows what a cool song that is. Again, backing vocals on this one, a little more harmonizing, but definitely sound like Robert's voice. So he laid down another vocal track for that one, just to double it mostly. Not even big harmonies or anything, just kind of doubling it to beef up the choruses and such. Play for today in M. Again, very high energy, awesome versions. As much as I love 17 Seconds, the album, I kind of feel like these are better too, which is real weird because Mike Hedges is an awesome producer. The whole sound of 17 Seconds I know is great, but I've kind of gone on the record of that too, where I feel like the whole album is kind of like robotic and stuff. I almost like M and At Night and stuff better with later live performances because it seems to be, I don't know, there's something about the album 17 Seconds that's very just kind of, I mean, it's made to be that way, maybe slightly robotic, but I just feel like it has a little more soul on these like live recordings. So it's just a preference thing, so don't get all worked up. Just, I don't know, I think I will take that stance though, that these are kind of cooler, I think, in the live energy way. Especially M sounds great on this fucking Peel session, so listen to it, see what you think. Alright, we all know by 1981 it's starting to get a little more heavy, getting a little weirder, and the Peel Sessions versions are no exception. Faith, the album, would come out April 14th, 81. The Peel Sessions 3 Peel Sessions 4 would be 3 months before this album drops. So this is a pretty good chunk of time before Faith finally comes out in April. If you remember, they did have more hesitation on this. They bounced around the different studios and weren't happy. The way 17 Seconds, they cranked it all out and did exactly what they wanted. This one was a little harder to peg down, and you can tell from these recordings. So this is happening in January, and the album won't come out till April. So of course we're going to get the first round of these slightly undercooked, rougher versions, mostly lyrically. The music's pretty set on all these, but you can tell he's just kind of mapping out where the fuck the lyrics should go. And it's a weird choice to do this because you think you wouldn't really want to go on this radio show and do these new songs, especially a very anti-Cure kind of thing to do for how little they present new songs before they're out on the albums throughout the years. Throughout the later years, they never do shit like this, you know? So very odd that they made this choice a few times coming up, but this one in particular is definitely some not finished shit going on. Holy Hour, they play Forever, they play Primary, and All Cats Are Gray. So Holy Hour, definitely tight, sounds great. Lyrically, isn't the same. He kicks it off with the "Oh Fuchsia" from going back to what he would later use in The Drowning Man with all the Gorman gas references and stuff. So there's some lyrical things you could tell he wants to use, but isn't quite in the right spots yet. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that's why we as Cure fans love this shit, and especially in hindsight, because this is like the cool version you can listen to when you're sick of all the official studio versions, you know, and kind of hearing because it's past the demo stage at this point. It's just sorting the puzzle pieces and getting them in the right spot, and you can almost just feel him working it out, like where stuff needs to land as far as phrasing and the lyrics and all that cool shit. So pretty cool. This one's a tough one too. Holy Hour in particular, on numerous like uploads and stuff. My MP3s, it always got like some kind of blurb and digital cutouts and shit. I think maybe I snagged my original versions of all these on MP3 during like the Napster days or something, and or ripped them from some bootleg that was a mess. But I always have a rough version of Holy Hour. I do have the vinyl of it, so let's get on that. But anyway, just a personal complaint. Me just slightly passive aggressively saying maybe it'd be cool if they put out like real cleaned up versions of all these on an album someday. That'd be cool. Forever is a weird choice that they would do a version of Forever on Peel Sessions as the preview to the new album. So fucking Forever. Let's see. Where do we start with this? Everyone loves it. Everyone's always, it's just this cool, weird little inside Cure thing. I think that people like it more than what it actually does usually. For those that still trying to sort all that out, basically it's that often done live, more in the early years where they would kind of improv. It's based on 3 from 17 Seconds, but that's where he would just lyrically, make shit up on the spot and jam more or less. And in later years, it would like get attached to the end of a Forest or Faith or something like that when he just goes into those little ramble jambles and they're just kind of riffing, and he's saying some cool random shit. So that's cool. I think Cure fans love it most because of the idea, it's kind of could be the only time this is really happening. There's never been an official version. It changes all the time. There's been reoccurring lines, they would say, throughout the years here and there. I personally don't love it, all these like bootlegs and stuff when it's on there. It's cool, but, I've never been a big jam or spontaneous make a fucking song up on the spot fan, but, it's cool just to hear them do a different version, on bootlegs and stuff. But I don't know, if you're just choosing 4 songs to do in this session that's on the radio, I don't know. But it's kind of cool. The old concert tape with the B-side is the only other like official version, I think, of Forever floating out there. I guess there's some on the deluxe reissues probably too. But so this one's kind of cool. It's kind of like, it's just saying random shit. But the fact that they chose it is really just kind of funny and weird to put it on this radio show. So I know you'll get all worked up over that too. How dare you talk shit of Forever? But I'd much have a set song in a set than watch them dick around. So sorry. Primary is another one. This one's interesting. This one definitely doesn't have any proper lyrics yet. The music's pretty much there. I think like 90% there, the same. But this is the yellow, 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 when he's just kind of fucking going through some word ideas. Some of the lyrics match up to where it should be, but then otherwise he's just kind of wandering and naming colors and shit. So, like I said, it's cool for us now because it's like different versions, but I think if I was listening to this at the time, like, and here's the Cure with their new song, yellow, 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 yellow. Just like, okay, cool, I guess. Work in progress. Yeah, should have been some kind of disclaimer on it, maybe, or something. They were kind of just doing whatever the fuck they wanted at this point. So then the last one for the Faith session was All Cats Are Gray, and this is probably the most like set one that sounds like how it'll end up on the record. So this is a really cool version. It has like kind of a drippy sample sound going in it too, so some kind of little drip noise going in the beginning. So it's real nice, real thin, like I said, with just loving Peel Sessions for that when you get like these overly epic songs and stuff, but when you hear kind of a nice thin live studio version, it's pretty rad. And this is one too that we just don't hear that often, so it's cool to hear any kind of like well mixed live version of this song. So this one fucking wins, I think, as this whole batch is really cool, and I love it. So I recommend that one in particular. Go check it out. So probably the most set out of the 4 though. Session number 5. No wasted time here. Right next year, we got. This one was recorded the last month of 81. So in December 21st, they recorded it. It would broadcast January 4th of 82, so at the beginning of the year. And then again, a huge gap from January to May when the album comes out, May 4th. So this is when this will come out. And so these are very early versions again. Siamese twins, which is rad that this is on there. As I said before, I love the old recordings of Pornography live when you see any of those old ones, just because they are kind of thinner and more haunting that way. And this one definitely captures that mood. It's really kind of just all the lyrics are on point for this one too. So I think this is pretty much set how they would. It's probably why normally you'd think that's a weird choice of song, but maybe because that was the most set one at that point. So definitely a highlight of this batch. 100 Years is another awesome one. The music is surprisingly tight on this one. It seems like the structure is all as it would be, so that's cool. And lyrically, you can tell he's still feeling out some of the phrasings, but they're mostly all there. It's just kind of like one line will be a little bit shifted and not quite set in stone yet, but you can tell he's got even all the lyrics and the lines there. It's just whether or not they're in the right kind of place or which one he'll repeat a couple times versus another line. So, and if you remember with Phil Thornalley, our good friend that we had on the show, he mentioned that they were surprising or just super tight when they came in for recording. They had been super well rehearsed for the Pornography sessions, so that makes sense of why all the music is totally there, as opposed to those Faith sessions where it was still a little more flighty. So yeah, that 100 Years sounds fucking rad. Figurehead, again, is super tight. Some of the lyrics or phrases are a bit more ramble-jambled and shuffled around, but nothing really compared to the Faith ones. And he does a great job of keeping it all together, actually. 7 minutes and 10 seconds, which seems like a way longer version. I don't know. Don't have the number in front of me, but Figurehead doesn't seem that long, is it? So yeah, and I only have 3 songs for this session. So Hanging Garden is cited on a lot of them, but there's no evidence of it out there. So I don't have a recording of Hanging Garden, but apparently it was part of that session. Something on a website said no TX. What does that mean? No, I don't know, but yeah, so I couldn't find that one. A lot of times this is the session that gets a little more convoluted because I think they did do some other BBC sessions. So there is a couple other Pornography songs that have live recordings that a lot of people will lump in with these, but I don't think they're the actual Peel sessions, because when you look at anything semi-official that looks like a discography of Peel session stuff for The Cure, it always just has the 3 songs. So even some YouTube clips I saw, they had like Ariel on there, but this is like some other shit from a different BBC session, I think, or it could even be that Robert Smith home demo from the Top Deluxe. So this wouldn't be later. I think it's that Kid Jensen sessions on the BBC that's throwing people off, because I think they did stuff for that along this time. So maybe, again, some of our UK friends can clarify some of that, but I think they did some versions that might be lumped in with this, but I think it's only the 3 if you're keeping score at home for Pornography. So let's move on before I talk into a trap. Session 6, the final one too. So there wasn't anything for the top, and they didn't do anything for the singles of just Japanese Whispers. So they wouldn't come back to the Peel sessions until July 85. Before the Head on the Door, they would record it July 30th, 85, and it would broadcast August 7th, 85, and then Head on the Door would come out at the end of that month. So this one's the weirdest with the timeline, because there are a few interesting choices on this. Most of it are lyrically pretty set, I think, and but it's odd because they play Exploding Boy 6 different ways, Screw, and Sinking, which is an odd song selection. of why those four, if you think about this fucking breakthrough awesome album that they gotta know is like gonna be like a huge thing for them and a huge step for them. So they're recording this like about a month, less than a month really, before the album comes out. Don't you think he would come out blazing like In Between Days and Close to Me and shit, and like in like the big singles and stuff? And the fact that Exploding Boy is even on there, they had to have known by that point it wasn't even going to be on the album. So maybe they were just being rad. They knew at this point they could do whatever the fuck they want, and that, you know, John Peel, maybe they had played, you know, advanced stuff to him and he chose those songs for him or requested them. But anyway, this Exploding Boy one is awesome on there. It's the one where it says, "Now wash your hands." So awesome that they included this though. So for whatever the fuck reason, no one's ever going to explain or complain that Exploding Boy is included. But yeah, based on those dates, it's very odd that they would put a B-side and 3 deep cuts on there. So very strange. 6 different ways keeps the strange going, but it has a different cool intro. So that's a little odd too, if it was probably recorded and done by this point. But maybe they were just like, we're in the studio, let's see what else we can do with it. And so kind of slightly different intro, but for the most part, a solid, cool live version. So fit nicely if you're still buzzing from 6 different ways on the last tour and you want to hear a different version, go check out this one. Screw, you know, probably always my least favorite song on Head on the Door, but I kind of like this version maybe better. It's a bit more like driving and maybe a little punkier even, since it's kind of all over the place. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I don't know, I kind of dig it. And it's a good variation, at least, if nothing else. And of course, Sinking is just beautiful. So it's so lovely to have another live studio version of Sinking. And yeah, could never get all of this. This one in particular, I feel like it's like the least reoccurring one when you punch in Peel Sessions Cure for anything. A lot of them leave this last one out, so it's really odd, because they're, you know, some fucking gems on there for sure, but this is kind of the forgotten Peel session in a sense. So I don't know, but yeah, it's a real cool collection. 6 sessions of Cure at the Peel Sessions. I don't see how many times I say sessions this episode, but yeah, cool versions of it. I wish they would have continued them their whole career, even or just all the way up to 2004. You know, John Peel was still around, still doing the sessions. So I don't know if it was just a conscious effort. It seems like he didn't have any trouble having the fall back on. So I guess just time and you know, fast-paced life of everything in the Cure world. But in the books out there and such, there really isn't much stories or anything though about when they recorded these sessions. At best, we just get the dates that they lined up with, like how quick the recordings were done versus when the albums came out. But there's no real, like, you know, real stories of when we were hanging out at the studio and John Peel came and we all got trashed, and, you know, like, I hadn't really seen too many of those. Even in Lowell's book, you know, when it gets more personal stories and stuff, it never really gets a mention. So maybe it was all just fairly cut and dry. Show up at the studio, record these songs, he'll play them later on a different show on a different date. I don't even know if John Peel was fucking there. so who knows, but I'm sure they crossed paths and hung out, and despite, you know, the loose lyrics and doing shit maybe a little off the cuff, I think based on how good these performances are and his comments about Peel sessions in general, you can tell it was something Robert definitely took serious, like way more serious than Top of the Pops performances or, you know, mimed performances or whatever the fuck. So, you know, this was a big deal to them, I think. So it's pretty cool that it got documented. And again, shame that they didn't keep it rolling. I do just wish they'd put like an official collection of these out at some point. I need to backtrack and look, because so many bands have done that. I feel like there's a Jesus and Mary Chain one, and Echo and the Bunnymen one. But yeah, just where you compile all of them together. I think White Stripes have something coming out soon where it's the complete Peel sessions. Very, very reasonable request, I think. I don't know. It's sure it's just a matter of who has the rights and signing the fucking paper over. So who knows? But I feel like I just don't really have the best quality MP3s of these that have been floating around throughout the years with stuff cutting on and off and the little digital farts going on throughout them and stuff, or people just ripping them from their vinyl, you know. So it would be nice to just have. It's kind of I just need that like reassurance, like with the Lost Wishes that they just put out, that, you know, I had so many shitty versions of those throughout the years, like just knowing that this was like the final good enough version for Robert's ears to be like, okay, this is the official reissue, re-release of it, you know. So it'd be nice to just have official cleaner versions with the stamp of approval that yes, this is what we want out there as far as the Peel sessions at this point. So that's a reasonable request, but add it to the list, right? Like I said, I have compiled a few lists and links, so be sure to check out our Facebook page after this episode, and you can kind of compile them too, and check out some of these old recordings, because I think you'll dig them too. As much as I fucking hate listening to stuff on YouTube, a lot of it is on YouTube, but it's worth it for these. You gotta make exceptions sometimes, right? So I guess in closing, we have to address that John Peel did die of a heart attack on that vacation in 2004, October 25th. And Robert posted on the band's webpage, pretty simple comment, but nice. It says, passionate, honest, generous, intelligent, funny, and truly great man. We will miss him terribly. So you can see he thought highly of John Peel, and I think all the bands, you know, have to tip their hat to this guy for being so good at spotting new talent and really showcasing so many great up-and-coming bands and turning them on to the world. So not even the bands being grateful, but all of us really fucking owe a lot to this dude for introducing these bands and getting them rolling out there. When you look at the list, it really is just mind-blowing of how many cool fucking bands. You know, he isn't discovering all these bands necessarily, but in a sense he is, because he's kind of showing them for the first time probably on these radio shows. And, you know, with the live angle, it's cool. You can see that they can really fucking play, especially in the later years, what they can sound like. So the cool part was, too, I was listening to his last episode, like I had mentioned, and at the end of it, there's a little clip there, and he says that the Cure were going to be on the fucking show, his last show. He says that they're coming up, and this is in 2004. So this would have been epic. This would have been like a return to Peel session. So I'm going to play you the clip right now just so you can hear it too.
Okay. Our listen again facility, with which you must be familiar by now. And seeing as I seem to be talking so much, let me just remind you what we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks while I try and get these emails sorted out and find the records that people want to hear for when I come back at the beginning of November. Next Tuesday the 19th, it's Rick and Carl from Underworld, and as Louise says, not entirely sure what they're going to be playing, but they may be playing some of their new material, and apparently they were very taken with Phil Roebuck last night, so there'll be banjo tunes in there as well. Wednesday the 20th, Susie Sue, bit of punk, bit of new wave, some Beefheart, some T-Rex, and a few surprises. Thursday the 21st, a week from tonight, Robert Smith of The Cure is being a bit cagey about what he's going to be playing, but I imagine it'll be fairly interesting stuff, and one or two tracks from sessions that he recorded for this programme in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And then the following week, Tuesday the 26th, Wednesday the 27th, Thursday the 28th, the boy Rob de Bank will be holding the fort, and I'm sure that what he does will be very interesting. And then I'll be back on, have I written it down somewhere? Yes, actually I have. I'll be back on at the beginning of November with Lally Puna, the Oxys, and then Caroline Martin and Leanne Hall. So, where are we now? Oh yes, this is, hold on. Yeah, bear with me, yeah. This is Trencher, last couple of tunes from them, Delusions and Blondes of Meth.
Alright, so there you go there. I let that run a little longer just so you can get a taste of the non-conventional kind of bands that John Peel loved to play even up until his last show. But yeah, that's crazy, wasn't it? That The Cure was supposed to be back on there just a few weeks later. So quite sad, quite weird. Sounds like it was post 2000. So what? October 2004. So post Curiosa tour. I'm not sure when the whole. Off the top of my head, reworking went down where they stripped it back down to a 3-piece, but it might have been something to do with that. Because remember, did you catch he said that he was going to track some of the songs that they played on Peel Sessions back in the late 70s, early 80s. So maybe as that 3-piece version that briefly Robert was reworking up again in his head after Roger and Perry were out, they were going to do another session for Peel Sessions. Maybe they did them somewhere else even, and it's just one of those ones that are floating around out there. So let me know if you guys have any tips on that too, because stumbled across all that in the last seconds here. That's why I haven't had a chance to dig in and research what it could have been. But it sounds like they wanted to re-record some of the oldies again for Peel Sessions in 2004. So that's a shame that didn't happen. As far as I know, or at least not as an official Peel Session number 7. So we'll just have to let it go. That's the way it is in life. And pretty cool that we have that recording, though. And there are a few like that where there's complete Peel Sessions. Those are rad, where you can listen to all the bands that he plays. It's a long show, too. That was like almost 2 hours. So I don't know if they were always that huge chunk of time, but pretty cool. So we're going to kind of wrap up on that note, I guess. And the best I can do is recommend checking out these links. Find those Cure ones. Most of you guys have heard these at some point, I'm assuming. So if you haven't, track them down. They're definitely worth listening to. And if you haven't listened in a while, definitely worth revisiting and hearing the progressions of those songs and noting what a cool thing that Peel Sessions were. So I hope you enjoyed this little travel back in time through these recordings and nerding out with me on which ones were coolest and which ones weren't. So we'll wrap up here with a quick shout out to the Patreon crew. Let's hear one of those Peel Session songs while I shout out these names. Yeah, here we go. Donna, Craig, Jeff Hilton, Jeff Cortland Jones, Sue, Ben, John, Alan, Allison, Dion, Namicio, Matt, Danny, Coulter, Matt Ford, Tom Johnson, Tom Burns, Letty, John Roberts, Francisco, Jason, Craig Bellinger, Amber, and Nicholas. And no Patreon roll call is complete without Tim. He's not only a supporter of our show, but part of New Waterloo, a company that owns and operates 5 luxurious hotels: the South Congress Hotel in Austin, Texas, the Waymore's Guest House in Nashville, Tennessee, the Albert in Fredericksburg, Texas, whose opening has been pushed back to 2024, so you can't quite get into that one just yet, but mark it on your calendars, along with the Revival in Baltimore and El Capitan in Merced, California. And we're still looking for Kelly Soriano. If you are out there, Tim is trying to get in touch, so you got to drop me a line so I can get you his email as soon as possible, because you guys need to catch up big time. So much Cure shit has gone down that he needs to talk to you about. So Kelly Soriano, if you're out there, Tim is looking for you. You guys gotta talk. It's been forever. And Scott Kruger is another awesome supporter of the show. You can catch him on his own podcast with his buddies, Sarlacc Digest, all Star Wars podcasts, live every Wednesday night on YouTube, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Catch them as they are really going over all the essentials before the Ahsoka series starts. Get you all caught up to date. These guys know their Star Wars. Trust me. And you'll love it. Go on over. You can join the chat on Wednesday nights and get your Star Wars nerd fix on big time at the Sarlacc Digest. You can also listen to the episodes later if you're not down with the live thing or can't catch it at the time, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Kate is over at CureThreads.com, and you should go check out what she has up over there. All kinds of Cure-inspired original artworks on prints and clothing and a wide range of products. So go check out CureThreads.com, but she's also set up a cool Instagram page, Cure Arts Collab. You're probably following it already and didn't even realize it, but if not, find it immediately on Instagram because there's so much cool Cure fan art getting posted up there. They throw up these themes and people contribute, and you get to sit back and appreciate it all and follow it. They just did a alt tour posters run of all kinds of cool alternative tour posters to imaginary shows that actually happen, shows that people wish would happen. So much cool shit. I would have loved to seen all those on t-shirts and such. So go check it out, Cure Arts Collab, and subscribe and follow it so you can be in the know of future projects that get announced and you can get in on it. Dana is waiting for your call. If you are in need of a motion designer or animator for your upcoming project or business, check out her artwork at graphics.tv. That's graphics with an X. And there you can see her motion graphics reel and get a sampling of all the amazing work that she can do for you, or just check out her awesome work too. So that's always fun. That's graphics.tv. And if you're in the Calgary area and dying to see a cool show or just get a drink, you should go to Dickens. That's what Lisa recommends. They host a wide range of cool shows up there. Everything from cool trivia nights to dance parties to live bands. You can check out their full lineup at dickensyyc.com. And don't miss out. If you want to stay at your home and not do anything but still see cool shit, you can also follow them on Twitch. Dickens YYC over there on Twitch for all live streaming action. Our buddy and co-host Chaz has another podcast that he's always working hard on, X Communication Station, and along with his co-host Donovan and Chrissy, they are hashing out all that you need to know about growing up in the church. They just completed a 3-part series on the Satanic Panic. I think it's going to be 3 parts. Maybe it's going to go even longer. So it's awesome. Tons of hilarious shit and mind-blowing. No band pretty much is left unscathed after this. So go check it out. It's everywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find the X Communication Station. And as far as podcasts go, don't let our future episodes slip by you too. It is safe. Just go ahead and subscribe. Trust me, it'll be worth it. And everywhere that you can subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that bullshit, you can subscribe to us over there. And follow our Instagram page at the Holy Hour Podcast so you know of upcoming episodes and such. If we start throwing some themes back out there, we might need your help. So wink, wink, it's coming up soon. So stay alert. We would love your input. You can also drop us a line at Facebook page where you can also check out the links to all these John Peel sessions that I'm babbling about here. So check out our Facebook page. You can email me directly at gavinconner@gmail.com if you want to clear up anything I said about John Peel's radio shows out there, if I totally butchered something or was off track. Or maybe, you could tell me just how much those John Peel sessions meant to you as a youngster. I would love to hear from you, and if you were one that followed them in real time back then. So, I hope you enjoyed this show. Sorry it's a little convoluted. It's always weird when I'm just rambling, so thanks for sticking with me. I had fun rehashing these old songs with you guys and trying to tip my hat a little to the late great John Peel. Hope you guys are good out there and taking care. We will be back soon. We got a nice episode up ahead. I don't want to jinx it in case it doesn't fall through, but you're going to love it. So stay tuned and go listen to those Peel sessions. We'll catch you next time. Talk hard.